We are staring at a regional crisis, not an economic crisis, not a crisis of trade, but of democracy itself. And democracy facilitates economic growth and is the basis upon which we can accelerate regional integration. The ideals upon which the East African community, the Jumuiya, was founded are cooperation, freedom of movement, the protection of human rights, and the rule of law. These are systematically being dismantled by member states acting with impunity. What has the rest of the world done? The African Union remains silent. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights, which is the right wing or the right arm of the African Union, has not acted. United Nations offers rhetoric but not redress. The United States, a self-declared champion of liberty, is barely audible these days and has its own issues of liberty back at home. Meanwhile, powers like China and Russia shield these regimes at global forums, bringing forth the question, are they our friends as residents of East Africa, or are they friends of our discredited regimes? To the people of East Africa, this is our moment of truth. We must resist, we must act. To the leaders of the EAC, you cannot speak unity while jailing, abducting, and torturing your own citizens and criminalizing free movement of people, which is the very reason why the Jumuiya exists. To the international community, your silence is complicity. The world must demand an immediate halt to the political repression in East Africa, the release of all political prisoners, and accountability of the state-sponsored torture and abductions, and must support free and fair elections where the people's choices are respected. The actions we are seeing are actually calculated to stop people from expressing their will. No wonder the leaders in both Tanzania and Uganda are charged with treason. No civilized nation where democracy exists have charges of treason on their law books, and if they have them, they're hardly used. There's no reason why anybody would overthrow the government using unlawful means in a democratic society. There are so many ways of legitimately overthrowing the government, the major one being through the ballot. These states are preventing a ballot revolution by suppressing the opposition in their countries. We, the People's Liberation Party, call on the Jumuiya to launch urgent inquiries into cross-border abductions, whether they hear or not, because the Jumuiya now has become the leaders. We must make this call so that it is on record. The Jumuiya has failed to act. We have not heard a word from the Secretary General. Maybe the Jumuiya acts to give jobs and salaries to the people who work there. If they exist to facilitate integration, unity, and upholding of their ideals, we need to have heard them yesterday. We call upon the African Union through the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and the UN Human Rights Council to establish a commission of inquiry into human rights abuses in Tanzania, in Uganda, and Kenya. The people we have mentioned affected are just a tip of the iceberg. In each of these three countries, there are many other people who are going through systemic torture, arbitrary arrests, some of whom have nobody to reveal their tribulations to the media and to the outside world. To the world and all democratic allies, we urge you to impose targeted sanctions on individuals, not on countries, on individuals responsible for enforced disappearances, torture, and suppression of civic space. And they are known. In Tanzania, at least we now know of Mafwele, of Tanpo. In Kenya, the BBC has revealed to us faces of officers who have been involved, and the Kenyan media as well. Through the media, we have been able to identify some of the perpetrators. In Uganda, some of the perpetrators boast on X. Those are the highest level. So in each of our countries, some of those torturing and giving orders are well known. All East African citizens should unite in civic solidarity across the borders, because your pain in Binga is our pain in Migori. Your silence in Kampala is our silence in Kisumu. This is no longer a Tanzanian issue. It's no longer a Ugandan or a Kenyan issue. It's an East African issue, and it's also an African issue and a Pan-African emergency. History will judge us not just by what we endured, but by our silence. It is time to resist. Let us unite, let us liberate, and let us lead in liberating each of our countries and East Africa. That is the end of our press statement. And let's see if there are questions. And we want to thank you for your patience. Yes. Yeah.
What is the next course of action to seek legal redress, to seek justice, maybe through the courts, through that?
Thank you very much for that question. While living their freedom as individuals, I'll tell you that there are organizations that are determined, especially the host organizations that had invited us to the observation mission. I know the East African Law Society is filing an action against the authorities in Tanzania, in the first instance, in the Tanzanian courts. We are going to challenge our deportation right there. It's against even Tanzanian law. You cannot deport people if you have no reasons, if you're not giving them any reasons. And also through the treaty. There will be suits in the East African Court of Justice, whether they process them or not, because that court has, for the last several years, been, their operations have been hampered and lessened by lack of funding. If you remember, the days I filed the first petition there, within a year it was disposed of. And within the second year, the appeal was disposed of. Now, my 2022 presidential petition reference is still pending. The one filed by Uganda earlier is pending. By Tanzania even earlier is still pending. So the court is moving at a snail's speed or not moving at all. We'll be suing there. We'll be suing in the African court and on any other site possible internationally for these heinous crimes. So we are not going to take this sitting back. That call to action is to you and me. Even an ordinary resident of East Africa can take these grievances to court. Let us join hands. Let us challenge these rogue regimes. I want to declare the 3 East African states, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, rogue states. And I want to say here categorically that my belief is that Kenya cooperated in our detention and deportation and corroborated in the torture of Boniface Mwangi and Agatha. There is no way we could have been deported. Remember, Ruto is the chair of East Africa Community at the moment. That lapse at the airport of 1 hour before they came to tell us we were going to be deported They were communicating with Kenya. Kenya must have given a wink for them to deport us. When they said they were releasing Boniface and Agatha, that lapse between the time they would have been deported on the 19th and when torture set in, there must have been communication. And if you want evidence, look at Mudavadi's statement when he was working, when he was being interviewed by the Nation, by the Citizen TV. He was literally saying, they are on their own, they are a nuisance here and abroad, you deal with them. So they are complicit. Look at how funny the fourth day is when they write feeble letters, and they write same day as Uganda, very feeble letters, not demanding, not even summoning the ambassadors to say where their nationals are. I bet by then they'd already known they are being dropped near their respective borders. I want actually to accuse the Kenyan government at the highest level of complicity. There is no way we could have been deported. A delegation consisting of a former minister, a former chief justice, that 1 hour they were communicating. And the call by the ambassador just before we were deported was a lullaby for us to sleep while we get deported. Yeah. Yeah. This is the reaching out. I'm reaching out to everybody through this press statement. Otherwise, I should be a very tired person walking around looking for people to talk to. This is sufficient. The media has a role, and you are helping us communicate with the world. Even when we were under detention, we did not call people. We just spoke through the social media. And thank you so much for those of you in the mainstream who picked it up and amplified it to the world. Thank you to Kenyans on Twitter, to East Africans on Twitter, because they took it to town. These are not days you have to knock on doors or bother your phone until it gets hot. Just one tweet or one post in social media suffices. This is how we address the world. Yeah. Asante sana. We appreciate you and we thank you. I didn't. The phones are yours. I was just about to take one.